Quite often in these videos, I say that lifestyle, rather than taking statins, is the proper response to metabolic and cardiovascular health concerns, but I never say what I mean by lifestyle. Today I'm going to do something a little bit different than my usual talk, and instead I'm going to discuss what I do to maintain my statin-free lifestyle. Stay tuned. When I talk about lifestyle, I mean lifestyle as it relates to health. So I'm going to limit the discussion to those things that are related specifically to metabolic and cardiovascular health. First thing I want to point out though is that this is a descriptive discussion and not a prescriptive discussion. What I mean by that is think of it as a case study. This is what I do. I'm not suggesting that what I do is necessarily appropriate for any individual viewer, but maybe it'll give you some ideas of the sorts of things you might consider. The first and most obvious thing in leading a statin-free life is I got off the statins, and if you're not on statins, then don't get on them. Now the purist among us would say, done, video's over, this was a short one, Russ, that was great, you're living a statin-free lifestyle. Well, I want to go into it in a little more depth, so let's look at why I got off statins. First, I am statin intolerant, so there's an obvious reason. If you're statin intolerant, don't let anybody tell you that it's all in your head, that it's nocebo, it's not real. Statin intolerance is real. About 50% of people on statins get off within a year. There's something real going on there, and the medical community is just ignoring it. Second, I have a philosophical intolerance. I don't like the idea of taking drugs unnecessarily for life. Now, I have that caveat of unnecessarily in there because if I were a type 1 diabetic, well, then I would have to be on insulin for my life, and that would be completely appropriate. But when it comes to statins, no one has a statin deficiency. Finally, there are questionable benefits. You read a clinical trial, it always seems that the number needed to treat is somewhere between 50 and 100 people. We should treat that many people to benefit one. The medical pharmaceutical complex could concentrate on reducing the NNTs by identifying who benefits, doing a better job on that, but instead they employ a shotgun approach. Let's just give it to as many people as we possibly can. That actually is a win-win situation because it's easier for the doctors. Give it to everybody. Put it in the water supply. Give it to everybody over 50, whatever your criteria you want to use is, and it's more profitable for the pharmaceutical companies. So it's a win-win. The only ones who lose, of course, are the patients. Keep in mind the guidelines that say 7.5% 10-year risk is the threshold for becoming eligible for statins. That 7.5% value, always have to remember, I've said this many times, it is an opinion. It's up to you to decide whether that risk is too high for you. It's not up to a panel of experts who all have ties to the pharmaceutical industry. The 7.5%, there is no evidence for or against it. It's just a value they've selected because, well, I guess they can sell more statins that way. Let's take our cynic's hat off for a while, and let's assume that your doctor wants the very best for you, and they're just misguided in thinking that statins will have anything to do with that goal. So what are they attempting to achieve? Well, they're trying to achieve cardio and metabolic health for you. What I would like to do is talk about 4 lifestyle areas which can help improve these without the use of drugs, and that is stress reduction, improving your sleep, diet, and your exercise routine. So let's talk about those one at a time. So here's a good example of why this is not prescriptive, because how did I reduce stress? I retired from a 42-year career, mostly in the defense industry. That's not something that everybody can do. For example, perhaps you're in mid-career, perhaps you're not financially able to retire yet. Maybe you just don't even want to retire. That's just not your thing. The point is to identify what is the source of stress in your life and do what you can to reduce it. I know that's easier said than done. In my case, well, it was pretty easy. I just said, that's it, I'm retiring. When it comes to sleep, I have set a bedtime of between 9 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. The dog wakes us up around 6:30, so I get plenty of sleep. If you have a sleep disorder, telling you to get better sleep is really not much help, I know that. But don't be afraid to seek professional help for either stress reduction or addressing any sleep improvements that you need. The point is to recognize how much impact stress and sleep can have on your health. I want to go a lot more in depth into the next 2 topics, and the first one is diet. I am on a low-carb diet with the intent of keeping insulin resistance in check. When I first started on this journey, I watched a video by Dr. Ford Brewer, and he gave some statistic about how many people are insulin resistant and on their way to type 2 diabetes and don't know it. And I remember thinking, well, I'm glad I'm not one of them, until I took a Kraft insulin survey. Doctor looked at it and his hair practically caught on fire. He said, you have insulin resistance. So I've got to deal with that. I was a sugar addict all my life. It's only in the past few years that I've gotten away from that. For example, I can remember as recently as 5 years ago going to a vending machine, picking Rice Krispie Squares as a snack because that's healthy, because there's no fat in it. All it was some grain, the rice, and some sugar. It's low fat. Who can go wrong? I was brainwashed by the fat phobia that's pervasive in the country. Just an example of how misinformed we can be. My diet is not specifically keto, not vegan. It's not carnivore. I don't push any particular one. We all should select what works best for us, whether it's the Mediterranean diet, the Piacquadio diet. I know our viewers are probably, there are some vegans, there are some who are on a keto diet, some who are just on low carb, high fat like I am, some are carnivore. And I would just ask us not to push our diets on others. I think one of the reasons that these diets can work for different people is all of them really emphasize being conscious of what our food choices are. And that's the big thing. We should avoid seed oils and junk food. And if any part of this talk were prescriptive and not just descriptive, it would be this. These diets, they all avoid junk food. That is key. Next, a lot of things that are labeled as keto-friendly are still junk. What's happened is the food industry has seen this, what's probably considered a fad, the keto diet, and they're jumping all over that. If you read the ingredients on a lot of things that are marked as keto-friendly, you'll see the same junk in there that you would expect to see in the standard American diet junk food. Another thing is I don't happen to drink alcohol. This is not a value judgment on anybody who enjoys drinking alcohol. I just never developed a taste. It just tastes nasty to me. Maybe it's just my taste buds. So I don't happen to have alcohol at all in my life. Now, it's not just what you eat, but it's how you eat. I eat a maximum of 2 meals a day. That's what that 2MAD is, 2 meals a day. Occasionally, I'll go for 1 meal a day. And I also, every couple weeks, I'll do a 36 or more hour fast. Most recently, I happen to do a 40-hour fast because that's just the way the clock worked out for me. I do take a few supplements like vitamin D, CoQ10, and the B complex. The vitamin D, I live in the northeast of the United States. We never get enough sun, even though I do go out every day. It's just a chronic problem around here, and I do have a vitamin D deficiency. I take CoQ10. I have taken that ever since I got off statins, hoping to recover some of my mitochondrial function, if that's even possible. One thing, though, I do want to point out is that you can't out-supplement a bad diet. You have to start with a good basic diet, and you can tweak it from there. If you have special needs, for example, the CoQ10 to me is a special need because of my past history with statins. So for exercise, we're going to go take a look at my exercise equipment. This is my exercise area in my basement, and I do 3 different types of workouts twice a week each. The first one I want to talk about is called high intensity interval training. And there's a lot of good videos out on YouTube about it, so I'm not going to describe exactly how that is done. I go through a half-hour workout of speed changes, essentially, where I have a rest period and then I sprint. And I do this all on my elliptical trainer. And the idea is to get your heart rate up in steps, almost like it's ratcheting up. It goes up after a sprint interval, it'll recover a bit, it'll go up a little higher on the next interval, recover a bit. I use the formula 220 minus my age as a target heart rate, which for me would be 154. At the end of my half-hour workouts, I'm typically more into the low to mid 160s. Then I take a rest of 2 minutes doing absolutely nothing, take my pulse, and it's usually back down around 100. It recovers very quickly. This is not something you should be trying if you've never done it before without consulting with your physician or cardiologist to make sure that it's safe for you. The next type of workout I do is just straight cardio workout, and also on the elliptical trainer, where for an hour in each session, I just pedal at a relatively slow. I just go for that hour, and what I'm trying to achieve is a heart rate around 100, which at my age is in the middle of the fat burning zone. So it's not very strenuous, though by the end I am sweating quite a bit. So an hour of pedaling on that. The third thing that I do twice a week is resistance training. My daughter is a fitness trainer. She said to me many times, Dad, you've got to do weights, you've got to do resistance training in order to maintain your muscle mass at your age. And my doctor, who is my age, he's actually 5 months older than me, he said the same thing to me. So I went out and I got a beginner set of weights. I've never been a big weightlifter. You can tell I'm kind of scrawny. I'm not going to be arm wrestling with Dr. Sean Baker anytime soon. If you've seen any of his videos, you see how much muscle mass he has. But I did get this set, and this has just 50 pounds on it. There's 100 pounds in the set overall. I have 14 or 15 different exercises that I go through sets on of various different weights. At this point, am only up to 60 pounds, which is not very impressive, but considering that I have never been a weightlifter, I was on a college track team. We did have a weights coach who put us through some drills, but I haven't done that in 45 years. I was a half miler. I wasn't a hammer thrower or anything like that. The coach was. So that's what I go through. I slowly will be building up. I'll probably never have a need to go over 100 pounds. I can't imagine me bench pressing much more than that, given my body type and my age. The important thing here is, if you're going to start an exercise routine, please consult with your cardiologist or your physician. Make sure that it's safe for you. Next, I want to bring your attention to a Dobert comic strip. If you're not familiar with the Dobert comic strip, it is popular at least in the United States and probably worldwide. The main character, Dobert, is an engineer, and the comic strip is mostly about making fun of all the foibles of corporate America. Occasionally, there will be a strip about his home life. Now, I can't put it up on the screen without violating copyright, but I think I'm safe in describing what this particular one was about. And Dobert had been out exercising, out running, and he's got a talking dog named Dobert. And Dobert asks him, "How do you feel after your run?" And he says, "I feel awful. It was great." The dog asks, "Well, forgive me for asking this, but if you feel terrible, why do you do it?" And he says, "Well, I do it so that I'll live longer." And then, of course, the observation is made is, okay, you're going to live longer, but you're going to feel terrible. Well, that's not why we do our exercises. So let's take a little deeper look into that. Yes, the exercise hurts. I really don't particularly enjoy the high-intensity interval training that I do, but I do it. It's only an hour a week, so I'm willing to put up with that. The reason I do these structured exercises or workouts is to be better prepared to deal with the unstructured exercise opportunities as they arise. By exercising the way I do in this formal manner, I believe I enjoy those other opportunities, walking the dog, or traveling with my wife, going on vacation, visiting my children, whatever it is, I'm better able to do those things. My particular special interest is in long distance hiking. Now, when I was on statins, I could only complete about 50 miles per trip. I was considering giving up hiking because I just wasn't enjoying it anymore, and I didn't realize why. I didn't realize that it was the statins. I do have a video on that very topic about how I discovered through my hiking that it was the statins that were bringing me down, so to speak. This is a map of the east coast of the United States. North is approximately to the right. The green and red mark on there is the Appalachian Trail. It is a 2,200-mile footpath through the Appalachian Mountains. Since I was about 12 and my father first brought me out on the trail, it has been one of my life goals, bucket list item if you will, to complete section hiking this trail. And a section hiking of the trail means doing it in bits and pieces until you filled in the whole thing, not trying to do it all in one trip. Of the people who do try doing the whole 2,200 miles on a single trip, about a quarter of them actually make it. And as you can imagine, it is a huge time commitment. This map shows what I had completed before last year's hiking season. The green is the sections of trail that I completed. The red is what I still had to do. I was able to hop on a train, go down to Georgia overnight, and then hike this part that's being filled in there. A 500-mile trip took me 5 weeks, and I can do that now. Not just the 50 miles that I was able to do when I was on statins. This is something that statins tried, if we were to ascribe a motivation to an inanimate chemical. Statins tried to steal this from me. So what's the point of all this? First of all, not taking statins is a lifestyle choice. Statins are part of a system that is rigged against our good health. Our food supply, for the past 50 years especially, has become tainted with unhealthy choices. Fat phobia is rampant. Profit motive takes precedence over the well-being of the consumers, and that goes for both much of our food supply and our medical treatments. This isn't conspiracy thinking. It's a simple consequence of the profit motive. Think about it. For years, tobacco companies told us that tobacco was harmless and it wasn't a cause of lung cancer, even though they knew that was the case. Today, sugar companies deny the connection between their product and the massive increase in type 2 diabetes that has occurred in the last 50 years. Statin adverse effects are denied and the benefits are exaggerated for reasons that have more to do with money than with health. Big Pharma will continue to sell empty promises of solutions to our health problems in bottles and pills and monthly injections of chemicals. We need to hold our doctors accountable if they're part of it, and we need to hold ourselves accountable if we submit to it. So those are my lifestyle choices that I've made. If you appreciate this content, please like, share, subscribe, and comment on this or other topics you'd like me to cover. And if you haven't seen this video, I recommend you take a look at it now. Thanks for listening.